The following program discusses sensitive issues related to addictive behavior. Parents are cautioned that some material may be too candid for younger children.
You know, there are times that I just want to kiss God on the face. I love how he steps into the craziest situation and brings grace and recovery and hope. Welcome to Celebrating Life in Recovery. My name is Cheri. Come join us in the cafe. Welcome. You know, I thought about this program today. We're going to do it a little bit different. We have no one at the cafe. I am just having some friends come in, and it is one of the hardest and most scariest programs I've ever done. And I think for a couple reasons. I asked my friend Rayne and Adam to come in and do the program with me. If you ask them, they would say they don't even know where they are spiritually. They're a mess and all that kind of stuff. So please don't expect anything in that way, because today we're talking about the grace of God. Does God know who we are? Does God step into our lives all along the way and say, I've known you since the foundation of the world, and I will get you home. I will get you standing up. But before I introduce Rayne and Adam, I want to say a couple things about what happened this week to set this program up. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, so in the last couple weeks, I went to another state and did a prison ministry. And it was really fun, because I'm doing a women's prison, and I just called it, Women's Retreat Behind Bars. And they gave me 3 hours, 2 days in a row. Right, which is crazy. You just never get that. So I'm working with a group of women. I feel like I'm working with my family. I know exactly, where they're at, and a lot of them have crimes that are intense. They're walking around with stuff that they are ashamed of, things in their life that have plagued them, maybe even from the womb. I mean, it's just crazy to work with these women. And I watched one after another start to really get the fact that what if grace is true? What if God is crazy about us? What if I can step into a relationship with God and know that he knows all of that, and I am forgiven and I am loved? So we start talking about this, and there's one woman that is in the audience, and the guards and the volunteer coordinator, everybody is saying, you know what? If she does anything, we're removing her from the room. And I'm thinking, what's up with that? And they said she has just been, she's hard to deal with, she's angry, she's always inciting things. If she says anything, if she's disrespectful or whatever, she's out of here. And so I'm thinking, how can I make sure that that doesn't happen? Because I know she needs to be there. I mean, if she's that out of control, she needs to be there. And so, Rayne, you would love this. So I start talking, and I'm going to do an example of something in my life, and I grabbed her like by the throat and lifted her up, and then kind of threw her back in her seat, and she looked at me like, what'd you just do?
I like you.
And I like you. That's exactly what she said. It's like, what did you just do? And her and I started to have a little bit of a rapport. And so the first day we're just setting up on who is God, and what is forgiveness about, and what does he think about us, and all of that kind of stuff, and really going to the point that if I don't get rid of this anger and bitterness, if I don't surrender this, it will destroy me. It will destroy me, everything in me. I just won't make it. And so I'm trying to get all of the women, but her in particular, to look at the fact that you've got to surrender this stuff. You've got to somehow step over that line and just say, I'm not saying anybody's innocent or guilty, I'm just surrendering this. I'm going to give this to God and accept the grace that he has for me. So the next day we do this whole thing about worksheets on forgiveness and whatever, and she starts crying because everybody is saying, you know what, I did this forgiveness last night and forgave my uncle who molested me, or my mother who left, or my husband who beat me. I mean, all of that kind of stuff, and they're all working on issues, and I feel so light and free, and I'm watching all this healing, and she starts sobbing. I don't feel any of that, she says. I don't feel any of that. In fact, I feel angry, and I feel like I don't even want to hear what someone else got free of, or the fact that it worked for them, because I'm not feeling any of that. And I'm not forgiving anybody. I'm not forgiving anybody. And it was so heavy and it was so intense that I got on my knees in front of her and I just held her hands and I said, my fear is you will die with this anger if you don't forgive. I'm not saying they're right. I'm not saying your life was fair. I'm just saying you're going to die with this if you don't give it up. And she started crying and she's like, I don't know how to give it up. How about just say that? How about just come to God and say that? I don't know how to do it. And she did, and the whole room. Healing, it was like a wave of healing that went through this entire room. I watched her body change. I watched the counselor, who was a non-Christian counselor, hates the fact that Christian groups come in, and I'm definitely faith-based. I'm crazy about God. And so she hates the fact that groups come in talking about God. And she was in tears. She's in tears, and I'm thinking, shut up, how fun is that? This woman couldn't even hardly hold herself in. So then the volunteer coordinator says, how do you want to end this? And I want to just say, forgive me for anybody that has a hard time with this, but I said, can we do an anointing for healing? Because these people have some serious injuries, psychological injuries, pain that they have brought their whole life, crimes that they have done that they've caused pain. I mean, they really need to look at grace and forgiveness. Can we do an anointing? And I had to pull the pastor in and all that kind of stuff to do this anointing, and about 25 women got anointed, including this woman that was so angry. And so what I want to say about today's program, we are going to look at grace. And we're going to look at grace in a way that I'm not going to apologize for God at all. He loves us. I mean, some of you, and some of you even watching, have done things that are crazy. The shame that you walk around with is intense. You know exactly who you are. You know exactly what you have done. Some of you haven't. Some of you had things done to you that are so intense, but we're walking around in such bondage. And we come to a God that says, man, I know all of that. Romans 5 is my favorite one, and we're going to stay with this almost all season. But Romans 5, when God was talking about the fact that for when you were without strength, when you were powerless, when you didn't have the ability to even respond to what I'm offering you, the love and grace I'm offering you, I died for you. When you hated me, when you were slamming heroin, when you were out there running and lying and doing all that kind of stuff, I died for you then. You've got to get that grace is absolutely what saves us. Everything else comes later, but grace we have to get. So we're going to be talking about that, and I'm so excited. So now I want to introduce you. Rayne, you know that I love you.
I love you.
I've loved you forever. We met how long ago?
12 years ago.
Yeah. Tell the story about the first prison we went into together.
We were doing prison ministries in the juvenile facilities around Kansas, and we went to the facility in Topeka, where I live now.
Oh, wait, you know what I got to say? No, that's perfect. But the fact is, when we first met, you said to me, do you do prison ministry? Because I want you to go into the prison with me. And I remember saying the craziest thing, I'll never say this to you again, is I said, you set it up and I'll go into as many as you want. And I think we went to every prison in Kansas.
We went to every juvenile facility in Kansas. That was a challenge, but we did it. It was pretty cool. But when we went into we were getting ready to go into the one, and we're like an hour away from where we were staying at, remember?
Yeah.
And you left your ID.
I had no identification at all.
You had none. And we're just sitting in the car, and you're looking through your purse, and you're like, oh. And you just didn't have anything. And you and I both know you don't get in without identity. It's just, we might as well just turn around and leave. And I was ready to back out, and you're like, no, wait, we're just going to pray about it, and we're just going to go in. Okay. Let's go.
Was the craziest moment because I knew, I looked at you, and I thought, you know what? Not only is this important for whoever's going to be in there, but it was important for you. And to me, I felt that with everything in me, and I said, God, you cannot let the fact that I don't have ID stop this. And I remember just praying like crazy.
Yeah.
And we got out of the car and walked in like that was ridiculous.
It wasn't
Who
going to
does
happen.
that?
We weren't going in.
Yeah.
So we go in, and they're checking my ID and the other lady's ID, and you're just chatting away with the guard, like no big deal, nothing, and they just let us in. They never even asked you for your ID. That's just not, that doesn't happen.
It was so interesting. To me, when we got in there, one of the things that I think was amazing to me is how freely you give your testimony to people that you want to help. And so I want to ask you to start out a little bit with you. Who are you? You know, what's your story? What's your journey? Because like I said, spiritually, you're saying I'm all over the board.
I was born disabled. My mom had a really hard time with taking care of me because she has a bunch of her own junk. My dad went to prison when I was 1, and he's still there. And I was raised...
The whole time? He's not been out?
Never.
And back in? Well, he's been in the whole time?
Yeah.
Other than one escape?
When he escaped, but yeah. Since I was 1. And then my grandparents stepped in when I was like 3 or 4 and adopted me, and a huge generation gap, and just, I mean, they did their best. They had the best of intentions, but it was a kind of rough, especially once I became a teenager. And they loved me so much, and they wanted to, you know, raise me the best that they could and protect me, but I think they just kind of had the wrong idea. They tried to, you know, treat me for my disability instead of a 17-year-old normal girl. If
you had to explain that to someone, because I don't think abled folks realize how ignorant we are sometimes with what we say. You know, so when you just said that they tried to treat me in my disability instead of like a 17-year-old, what do you mean?
I mean, I just think they wanted to protect me because, I mean, to them or to other people, I'm fragile. And to me, I'm like, I'm just a normal 17-year-old girl. Could you just let me go out with my friends? And yeah. I mean, I couldn't go out past dark. And in the wintertime, that's 5 o'clock. And for a senior in high school, that's stupid. Yeah. That's just insane.
So you rebelled against all of that?
Oh, man. I was out to just prove I was everything that no one would expect me to be. Yeah.
And when I first met you and you said, you know, I'm sneaking out of the house and I'm, you know, going out and smoking weed and hanging out with friends and all of that kind of stuff, for you to sneak out of the house was not the easiest thing.
I did it. I stole the car a couple times. Yeah. I mean, I was going to prove that I was going to do whatever it was I wanted to do. And
I'm no different than anyone else.
And maybe that wouldn't have been that way had they just treated me like a normal teenager, but I just had to prove myself. And it just turned out the wrong way to prove myself.
So did you ever, because you said they were in church, they were probably a little bit even more hyper-religious.
Yeah,
you know?
It's just that, I mean,
because we talk about religious addictions and that whole generation thing, is that you're talking maybe some of that stuff even.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my grandma loves God, and that we're supposed to love God with all our soul and heart and mind, and that He's supposed to be number one, and that's good, but she took it to a different level where she loved her religion like more than me. Yeah. And I don't think that's okay, you know, and that's what she did to my mom. That's a powerful statement.
Because your mom ended up totally rebelling and pushing away from all of that too.
Oh yeah, it was bad for her too.
So when we met, you were with a really abusive relationship.
Yeah. I got married when I was 22. We had Jaden, and when I met him, he was like this great guy, you know, like I would have never imagined he would do anything terrible. And then our relationship was fine in the beginning, and then through my pregnancy with Jaden, it wasn't until after I had Jaden that he started being abusive. And then by then, like, it's too late. You have a kid, you're married. I mean, like, I had no inclination that he was going to be abusive whatsoever. So I was just stuck.
Didn't talk to anyone, didn't tell anyone.
No.
You didn't tell me.
And I was in it when I met you.
Yeah, because I found out after everything fell apart.
And it was a big shock to everyone that knew us. Like, what? No way. And it, like, people didn't even believe me, some people, including my own family. They actually took him in when we split up. And then I was the wayward one. And I'm like,
are you kidding me? But you know, with some abuse, like I work with a lot of people that I love that are in really abusive relationships, and that all plays out, and it looks like it's their fault, and why didn't you tell anybody? It couldn't be that bad. You need to just hang in there.
I still felt that way.
But you had a knife to your throat at one point, so where it was the fact that he wanted to kill not only you but Jaden
and Hannah.
And Hannah.
So I mean, he turned around and looked at them, because he kept telling me when he grabbed us up and put us in the truck, he was like, I'm just going to kill us all. And I'm like, of everything, he was a good dad. Like, I mean, he was not good to me, and our relationship was craziness, but he loved his kids, and he was a good dad. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I just got to get him to focus. And I was like, turn around and look at your babies. Your babies are in it. Let's go take them back to the house. You can do whatever you want with me, but just look, your babies are in the truck. And he looked at Jaden in the back seat, and I said, I am going to kill us. And he told Jaden that. Jaden remembers that to this day.
And he was young.
He was 5.
5 years old. Man. So, to me, the reason I just want to start with who are you, because that's not what this program is going to be about today. But what I want to say is sometimes we forget that God is following us from years of damage. Sometimes it's years of craziness. It's years of maybe having, I think we have an enemy, and I think the devil is strategically going after us sometimes. And strategically, he is telling one lie after another, after another, after another. And grace, or God, has to get through all of those lies and say, I promise you, this was not my fault. So even at the time where you are walking away from that crazy relationship, you have your dad in prison, your mom is really not being able to be there for you, grandparents are at this time not even kind of cognitively still there. What did you think of God? I mean, what was that sense of God at that time?
He just wasn't there, and I wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough to keep a marriage together. I wasn't good enough for my kids, and I wasn't good enough for God, so he just wasn't there.
I just want to cry when you say that, because I love you. And I know that for a long time you felt that I just wasn't enough. I pray that after this program, no one will ever feel that. I just hope that we say that really loud. It's not about that. We are enough. So now I want to ask you how you met Adam, and then Adam, I'd like you to say a little bit about your background. Okay?
So this is crazy, because it's like the first time I've ever honestly told anybody how I met you right at the first.
So you're going to be honest. Yeah. I love that. Only on Celebrating Life. All right. Because you know what? It is weird that we can say, and I believe this more on this program than a lot, is, man, if we're not going to be honest now, let's not even say it. Yeah. Because there are people that just say, please don't just give me a Bible text, because I need something to hold on to.
I was working, and I was in the middle of my divorce, and I felt like a cool group of friends. They accepted me, and they were good to me. And one of my favorite friends, he had this buddy, Hamilton, and they lived in a halfway house together, because they had both just gotten out of prison. And he was always talking about his friend Hamilton.
That's exactly where I go to date. I'm sorry. I just have to say that, a halfway house. Are you kidding me? But you know what? That's how crazy our life gets. It makes sense. For some reason, it makes sense. But I just had to interrupt. I'm
Well,
sorry.
don't, that's not where you want to find someone to date, for sure. I often wonder how I'm going to explain that to my kids. Well, look where you found Daddy. I don't.
I'd like to meet her parents. Are you kidding me? You found Dad at a halfway house.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. It is going to be tough.
Yeah. So he just always talked about his buddy Hamilton for like weeks. I probably hadn't met him yet, so I knew all about him, and I knew why he'd been in prison. And my dad's in prison, and I've done stupid. I'm just like really non-judgmental about that kind of stuff.
And you're
really.
back drinking, back partying,
Yeah,
back hanging out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's not. And I just have to set the stage because with all of that, you are back in the midst of all of that craziness.
Oh yeah, it was a mess.
Yeah.
It was a real big mess.
Mm-hmm. Was God there?
I mean, not in my mind, but
Yeah.
yes.
And so because this for me, this whole thing is, I don't know why, but God was there. And that amazes me about the gospel and who God is that we can be in the midst of that. Everything else in us says we are lost, and God says, wait, stop and turn around. I'm right here.
Yeah.
I'm right here.
And you can see that in retrospect when you look back, but when you're in it, it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't. You can't see him, because you're just too. I was just way too out of it.
So you got a friend Hamilton in a halfway house.
Yeah.
You're saying whatever.
I didn't even care. And then I met him, and like I had this vision of like some just old goofy looking guy that would, I don't know, but it wasn't him.
Thank you, hon.
and then when I met him, I was just like, I mean, there was just something about him. I mean, he's got this charisma about him, and he, I don't know, what did it for me was Hannah. She did not like strangers or anyone she didn't know. And the first time he came into our house, she climbed up in his lap and just like in his lap. Mm-hmm. And she wouldn't do that. She didn't even do Jeff, the one that introduced me to Adam, was
friends that she knew.
And she didn't like him.
Yeah.
Like she wouldn't be affectionate towards him at all. And she climbed right up in his lap and just snuggled him while I was making him Theraflu because he was sick. Mm-hmm. And I came out of the bathroom and stood in the hallway, and I could just see right where they were sitting, and she was just curled up in his lap, and I was like, whoa, she doesn't do that to anybody. And that was like the first thing that just triggered.
That's really funny, because I liked you from the very beginning too. I just have to say. So you end up saying, who is this guy? He's funny.
I mean, I didn't really give it much of a second thought. He was just a funny, cool guy. He was really fun to hang out with. And I just fell for him.
So now I'm going to go to you, Adam, and just say, we're going to get back to what happened next. But how did you grow up? And what was your life like? Who are you? Were you? And I think you didn't have any kind of spiritual or Christianity in your home, right?
No.
Okay.
No. The only spiritual Christianity I had was visiting my grandma, which I probably seen her once a year for a weekend, and she'd take me to church. Mm-hmm. Growing up, my parents worked hard. Mom was a nurse. My dad was a store manager for Walmart's or Alco's or even Children's Palace before it closed. So I didn't see him very much. My mom drank a lot. My dad was a workaholic, always searching for how to make money, always investing in.
So he was gone a lot.
Yeah.
Mom was drinking.
Yep.
And when you say drink a lot, because I don't think normal people understand what the heck that means. What does it mean?
Then it was Milwaukee's Best, 30-pack every night.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And she would just sit at the table all night long just drinking. And she'd get in arguments with my older brother, sometimes say mean things to us. I mean, he was diabetic, and sometimes he'd pee the bed and she'd say something pretty mean.
So
to
he
him.
was dealing with some pretty serious diabetes.
Yeah, type 1, yeah.
Yeah.
It was at least once a month he was going to the hospital. an ambulance was there.
And just because of, and I'm sorry to do this in the middle of you sharing with us, but one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that when you've got alcohol and drugs and you've got people acting out in their addictions, they do not know how to be there for the kids. They just can't be there. And studies even show like a small percentage, they can be there emotionally or intimately, like less than 10%. And so then we wonder why as kids that we feel lost and starved. Both my parents were addicts, and then my mom actually moved another addict in, and I loved all of them, but they could not be there for us in the same way. So your mom could not be there for you.
Yeah, I mean, I loved her to death, and I agree, she couldn't. And Dad, he was always working, so.
So what did you do as a kid? I mean, could you have to eat? Did you get angry? Did you rebel? Did you, I mean, what did you do?
I was all over the place. I mean, pretty much the only person who was watching was my brother, because my parents were at work until 6. So either play football with my brother and his friends, or me and another buddy of mine named Adam, we'd get mischief. I mean, living in the community in New Mexico, and we just ran wild, throwing rocks at windows.
Breaking things?
Yeah, we love breaking bottles. You find an old bottle, we'd save them, and take them to the park and smash them on the ground, because it was so cool.
Yeah. And so you get into high school.
Yeah, my parents get divorced when I'm in 6th grade. My mom moves to Kansas, and I stay with my dad for about probably a year. And finally, I go and visit my mom here in Kansas, and she remarries a sheriff of this town. So I come visit him, and I fall in love with the small town.
Was she still drinking?
Yeah, a little bit, yep.
Not as much?
Not as much, no, not at all.
Because all of a sudden I see the sheriff's in town now.
Yeah, exactly.
She might clean up some.
Yeah.
So were you, if I say, I could see just wild, acting out. Were you a good student? Were you?
I had the mentality, D's get degrees. So, I mean, if I was passing with 60 and up, I was happy.
Yeah.
As far as my life, I mean, I did sports and stuff, but I was the party. I mean, I threw the party or hunt down the party.
Okay.
Drinking a lot in high school. I mean, weekends, it was a bad deal, just drinking a lot.
Okay, we're going to break. And we're going to break and come back. But I want you to just think about, because sometimes I don't think we think about, does God know who we are when we start behaving, or when we say yes, or when we start kind of feeling that kind of sense that I want to lean to God, or does he know who we are since we are born from the very beginning? And I think from the very beginning. And so you've got these two people that I love. So please be nice to them. If you're feeling like judging anything right now, just be nice to them. If you are them, I just want you to know that God sees you. But just know that from the very beginning, he is right there trying to woo us into relationship with him, trying to get us to the point where we could start to look up from all of this stuff long enough to know that there is an out, there is a Savior, there's redemption, there is there's grace. And man, it's nothing that we do. It's given to us as a free gift. So we'll be right back. Stay with us. Man, I just love this program, but it scares me.
The following program discusses sensitive issues related to addictive behavior. Parents are cautioned that some material may be too candid for younger children.
Welcome back. I don't know why, but I love these kinds of stories, not because I love what happens to us in our lives, but I love the fact that in the middle of all of this insanity, in the middle of this whole vortex of craziness, that you have a God that says, you know what, you're not out of my reach. I actually still see you, and I have a plan for your life, and I can change everything. And every single time I see him do it, every single time I watch somebody change their life and actually get it, and just almost with shaking hands, hand all of this over and say, can you fix it? And God says, man, I absolutely can. So, we're talking about, Rayne, we're talking about your background, and dad in prison, mom out of control, being raised by grandparents. I had no idea even how to speak to you at times. And then you're alcoholic mom, really kind of crazy, being out there doing whatever you wanted to do. And I love when you said on the last segment is that you even like the sound of things breaking, because I think that some people don't realize that when we are angry and all of that stuff is, I want to break something. I want to scream. I want to go out there and wreak havoc. You know, if I can steal your car, I'm going to steal your car. It's like, you know, kids coming out of all of that anger is almost a natural response is somebody's going to pay, you know, somebody's going to pay, and I'm going to have fun, you know. And so now you're in high school, not a great student, and what happens next?
It was my 2 months into my senior year. It was just another Friday night, me and a buddy, just looking for the party. I get a call from some girls we know, and they wanted to hang out and drink a little bit, listen to music and whatnot. So we head on out there, met in the field, and had the music up, drank. One thing led to another, me and one of the girls, and we messed around. Then it was a good night. We split our ways. Next day I get a call from the sheriff's office wanting to talk to me. I'm like, oh man, I must have got in trouble for drinking. So I came in there and they're asking questions. I told them the whole story about, I brought the booze, we were drinking, da-da-da-da. But then they started asking questions by Ashley, which I thought was a little bizarre, but I told them everything that happened with me and her. They said, write a statement and we'll let you go. I'm like, okay. So I wrote a statement down.
At this point you're saying, that we're probably in trouble for drinking.
Absolutely, yeah. But as soon as I wrote the statement out, signed it, they arrested me immediately and told me I was being charged with indecent liberties with a child. I was an 18-year-old senior, and the girl I messed with was under 16. She was 15 years old. Mm-hmm.
So what did you think? Because, for a lot of us, we think, no, wait. Because everybody, and I hate to say that we are out of control. We are out of control in high schools. We're out of control when we're raised in that much dysfunction. We are out partying and in relationships and damaging each other. But now you're saying, I'm arrested, and they're looking at me like, do you realize what we're saying?
Yeah.
You are in trouble.
And I was oblivious of it. I thought it was a little misdemeanor. I was like, okay, well, I'll just bond out and call my mom.
Yeah.
Like, you don't understand. You're in trouble, big trouble. I was like, okay. Anyway, we'll go to court, and I had a court-appointed attorney. And the lawyer said, you just got a plea bargain, or you're going to prison. You don't want to go to prison with a crime like this. I'm like, really? Oh, okay, I'll plea bargain. So we plea bargained for a suspension of prison time to go to Labette boot camp, which is like a 70% failure rate. And if I failed the boot camp, then I would go to prison for 3 years. So they shipped me off to this boot camp, which it was an intense boot camp. I mean,
so this is where somebody's in your face trying to get you to kind of man up, stop misbehaving, turn your life around. It's one of those kind of boot camps.
they want to break you down.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want to just, whatever attitude you had, they're going to take that from you. They're going to strip you down and mold you.
Man, and I know that I keep repeating myself, but with all the damage that you had, you have attitude. Mm-hmm. I can see it even now, where you're saying, you know what, somebody's got to hear me. I didn't do anything. I'm not supposed to be here, kind of thing. Yeah. And so they're saying, how long did you stay? They're saying that we're going to break you. You need to change that.
Yeah. 5 months and a week I was there, and I graduated. Upon graduation, I just wanted to put my past behind me and continue on with my life, so I enrolled in college to be a nurse. My mom was a nurse, she was an RN, so that's why I wanted to be a flight nurse. So I enrolled immediately after the first year of college. Good grades.
I was going to say, because D's aren't going to do it.
No, D's won't get you degrees, no. Yeah. But great grades, good.
Because you loved it? Why all of a sudden your grades are good?
I wanted to be a nurse. I mean, that's why I wanted to be. I want to help people.
Right.
And that's what I strive for.
Okay.
That was a goal. But upon the first year, the career advisor brought me in her office and told me I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you this, but you need to switch careers because you will never, ever be a nurse with your felony.
So, I've got to ask you, so at that moment when you realize, not only is this going to follow me, but it's going to dictate the rest of my life. Because now, not only did you get a felony for messing around in high school and drinking, and I'm not condoning any of that. You know, I wish that kids didn't, and I wish that we didn't act out, and I wish we didn't drink or whatever. My mom and dad drank, you know, in high school and ended up in trouble. But, you know, so I wish that didn't happen. But now you are a convicted sex offender. And what she is saying is that I can let you finish this program, but you will never get a job.
And that's what really hit me, how bad that crime is. I mean, I really never heard the word sex offender ever until I got labeled as one.
Yeah.
I didn't know the extent of it, and then I learned about pedophiles and all this other stuff, what a sex offender is. I mean, that's...
Didn't you want to just scream at the top of your lungs, wait a minute, that's not what I am, that's not what I did, that's not what happened?
And I didn't know who to talk to or what to do. And
even saying that, Adam, I don't want to excuse people that really have issues in that area, but it sounds like you're paying for a crime that you're saying, wait, can someone look at this? Because I know I should get in trouble, because you said that to me once. I know I should have gotten in trouble, but not a registered sex offender.
Yes.
So you have to leave nursing school. Did you finish, or did you just decide I'm leaving?
I dropped right away. I dropped out of college completely.
Yeah, started drinking heavy.
Heavy, partying, nonstop, lived with a bunch of guys. And I was on corrections, probation the whole time, so I didn't care. Eventually, they got tired of me blowing dirty breathalyzers, and revoked my probation and threw me in prison.
As a sex offender?
As a sex offender.
That's not safe.
No, it's not a good deal. That's the worst possible case you can possibly have, to go in prison.
So what happened? You go into prison as a sex offender, usually they don't survive, or they get really violently treated.
Yes, immediately. Upon walking in, and right away they ask you what you're in there for, and you tell them your case, like my case, what the situation was, and they don't believe you. They call you a child molester, all those other words. But I had this paperwork that had my charge and the ages and everything on there.
So you kept your paperwork with you almost?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And then they dismissed it as like, oh, they definitely don't harass me no more.
Yeah.
But I've seen other people come in there too, cases, and it's a bad deal.
How long did you spend in prison?
Like 2.5 years.
So now you're out in a halfway house, and that's where you guys meet.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You know, you're lucky I'm not your sister or your mom, because I'd be going like, Rayne? And not that, and you know what, from the time that I've met you, Adam, is I hear your story, and I'm not excusing any behaviors, and I feel bad for you and this girl, but man, a convicted sex offender, and to have that, like you said, kind of stamped on you, regardless of where you go, that's really tough. But you meet him, and somebody has to have told you that this is his issue.
But I knew his story right away, and I mean, I had a friend in high school that had a similar story. It was consensual. I mean, the girl her mother even consented, and the state just picked it up, and he spent 7 years in prison, and he didn't hurt anyone or force himself on anyone. It was bogus.
So you had some experience.
Yeah.
And what's really crazy is I'm not at liberty to mention who, but I have even someone in my family, same kind of thing, that they were in high school, found in a compromising situation, not even sexual, like you said, that you didn't have, it wasn't a sexual situation with this girl, but they were in the same thing, and everybody wanted to press charges. And this guy had turned 18 one day. He'd been 18 one day, and would have registered for not the rest of his life, but for years.
Yeah.
So you're saying, I knew the story, I heard that, you guys fell in love, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Got married.
Had a couple more kids.
But you know, I want to hear what happened when they found out you had kids.
So just to even I was on parole after I got out of prison. I was on parole for 3 years, which it was a very hard parole when you're a sex offender.
It's impossible.
Yeah, they want you to fail. I can't go to parks. I can't do anything. But anyway, Rain gets pregnant, and I tell my parole officer about this, and she says, you can't even be around your kid until you take this class for sex offenders. And I was in prison, I didn't have to take this class.
Right.
But on parole, I got to take it. So for me to even be around my own son, I got to take a sex offender class. And so I do it.
Wow.
Do whatever I got to do to be around my son. I go to these classes, and I mean, my kids now, I mean, I'm not against a lot of sex offenders at all. It should be there. I think there's some people that really are sick and really do need help, and it is a disease.
And people need protection.
Absolutely. So the class, it was rough sitting in it, but I kind of.
You know, I want to say, the first time you told me the story, and I realized the stories that you heard from person after person after person, you said it twisted you, it almost killed you. All you could do was go home and drink. And I wanted to say, I am so sorry, because I could imagine what you heard over and over and over. Mm-hmm. And wanting to scream at someone, I don't want to be here. Mm-mm. I don't want to hear this. I don't want to know this.
I had to.
Just to be around your own children. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He'd come home and you wouldn't even want to, you just wanted to leave him alone. Like, you could just tell he was just broken down. And you just left him alone for the rest of the night. Wow. Because he was a mess.
I just want to say, and I don't know how many people have said to you, is I'm so sorry. I am really sorry. So you end up going through the class. You get permission to be around your own children.
Yep. And that was, man, it was a celebration. We're so happy to be around my own kid, and I don't have to worry about the law coming after me. But yeah, it kind of went smooth there for a while. I mean,
you were registering once a year.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
At the beginning, registering once a year, sex offender. You know, there was a time I know that you were asked to leave your home. Can you talk about that a little bit? They gave you 14 days, I think?
14 days, yeah.
We lived there for 7 years, and we were good tenants. We never were late on rent. We took care of our house. I mean, it looked nice outside, it was nice inside, and just the development that we lived in got bought out by a new company. And once they found out that a sex offender lived in our house, they just 14 days. And I mean, that was home, especially for me and Jaden, you know, because that was like the first safe, stable place that we'd had after going through everything we went through. And now we're being told we have to leave home.
14 days. And nobody's going to rent to you?
Nope.
Nobody.
You said that you were online.
I was on the internet for days. I mean, I just lived on the internet for days trying to find a house. And every day he'd get off work and we'd go look and you know, tour a house, look at a house. And every single person wanted to know if you had a felony or if you were a sex offender. And some of them would specifically ask if you were a sex offender.
And you'd say yes. You'd have to say yes.
Well, we'd just walk out.
Yeah, because you knew.
Yeah.
So, you know, what's really was crushing to me is I know that in 2013, you were going to be off of probation, not having to register anymore, all of that kind of stuff, and you were going to get your life back.
Yeah, I wouldn't have to register no more and everything.
What happened?
They changed the law. Now, instead of, it's supposed to end in 10 years, now they changed the law where I got to do it for 25 years. And I have to register 3 times.
Not you personally, just everyone.
Everybody.
Right.
Well, it depends. People that had to register for 10 years had to register for 25 now. And people that had to register for 25 have to register for life.
Wow.
So, and then they up to $20 every time I go register and 3 times a year.
Four times a year.
Instead of once, it's 4 times a year.
4 times a year.
And 15 more years.
Yep. So now my kids got to deal with this now too.
Yeah. All our kids, except for the baby, will go through high school with him being a registered sex offender.
Oh.
How do you do that? I mean, how do you deal with that?
My wife and family, one thing, they're a wonderful support group, and my church family. I mean, I don't.
Because you're in church for the first time,
Yeah.
still drinking, still not sure where you're at with any of that.
Yeah.
But what brought you to a place where you said, I'm even going to move in that direction?
Well, just the people and watching her, really. I mean, she reads a few books in the mornings, and I mean, the things that she goes through, I don't know how she does it. I mean, sometimes I don't know what to do to help her. But these books she's reading, it gives her such amazing support, and I mean,
The devotions and stuff.
Yeah, that's what they are. Sorry.
Yeah. No, but you know what? I'm just imagining, because I know that your whole life, you've hung on to God, almost white-knuckled it half the time. And so He's watching you. Say that in the midst of this craziness, He watches you go to the Word or grab a devotion or pray.
No, I just don't feel like I don't feel like a good example. So it's crazy to hear him say those things.
I love that. So it got you to where you stepped into a church.
Mm-hmm.
And what was that like?
Awesome. Right away, just having open arms. I love the Sabbath school with the kids. I mean, because I don't know a whole lot about the Bible. I'm very new at learning it. Been going for 4 years now.
Because you have 4 kids.
Yeah. But I learned so much in just my 3-year-old's class. I mean, all the stuff she's learning, I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome. So it's just, even where I go, I'm learning more and more and more. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Learn about God's love, and it's okay to fail. He's there for you, and He loves us.
What's really, even for you to say that, I want to go back to, for both of you, is that what do you do with any resentment or anger or this is not fair? Because I want to say, I like you said earlier, as I believe the laws are there for a reason, and I think they protect everyone. We've had, in the first season, a convicted sex offender that said, I need that structure. I need to know that I'm accountable, and I need all that stuff. So I'm not saying anything against that, but I'm looking at you and thinking that, man, for a mistake in high school with a girl that you're kind of dating, to register for the next 25 years is so, I can't imagine the changes. So what do you do when anger comes up? What do you do when, like, even for you, what do you do? Because you have to deal with this every day.
All of us have to deal with it. I mean, the kids are even getting old enough where they're going to have to deal with it. I feel like I take it in stride, maybe even too much, because I don't care what he's labeled. It's just ludicrous to me. So I don't.
Because you know him.
Yeah, and everyone else that knows him feels the same way. But for him, it's different because he feels that label on him daily, maybe even. And it took me, like, even just a couple of months ago, I finally realized that, because I think I just took it way too much in stride, when really it's beating him down way more than what I realized, because I don't care that he has that label. Who cares what society says? It matters what God thinks about you. It matters what me and the kids think about you.
And who he is.
Yeah. And
how about you?
It's, at first, I mean, I lost jobs over it, and it was tough to accept. I mean, I didn't know what to do. Over the last 3 years, though, 3 or 4 years, ever since I put my foot in that door in the church, I do feel lifted. Pressure's off. I don't really care what people think about me no more. What matters is my kids, my family, and relationship with God. You know, it's tough. Real tough.
And I guess I want to look at you, and I'm thinking, you know, that's a sweet answer, Adam, but I know that I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you to be real. You got stamped. This is who everyone says you are. You have to fight this on every first meeting. You have to fight this on every job, on every time you go out for a house. And so if you were talking not only for yourself, but other people that have had to do that fight, would you give that same sweet answer?
No.
Okay, I want you to answer for real. You know, I can't imagine, and I can't imagine walking around with that. And when you say I drink to stop thinking about it, I get that.
No. It's terrible. I mean, when people look at you as a pedophile, it brings so much anger and just makes you hate everyone. When I go home, instead of relaxing, it's sitting there going over in my mind. I mean, what did I? Why am I labeled this? I mean, can't people forgive? I mean, I've already done my time. Why do the laws keep changing? Am I supposed to battle this rest of my life? I mean, nothing's easy for me to do in life. Absolutely nothing, at all. And
not even the eyes of your children. They're going to look at you, and you're going to have to explain to them.
Yep. Or their friends, parents, teachers, whoever. I mean, it doesn't affect me no more. It affects anyone. It affects my whole family now. And they inherited it, and as years go on, law changes, and it keeps me sucked in. It's like nothing I can do except just hang on.
You know, and I hope this doesn't sound cheesy, but we're talking about grace. And I was thinking about how to cover this with you and how to look at this in a real sense with you. There's in Romans 5 and 6, and it says, you know what, even when we were powerless, even when we were being bombarded with all of this stuff, even when we were yet enemies of God himself, he said, I died for you because I know you're not going to pull yourself out of this. It is only going to be for the grace of God that you will grab your life back. And so when I read that, I thought about you specifically, that I can't imagine what it feels like to be in your skin sometime and have that battle, knowing that you're going to have that battle day in and day out. What do you do with when it's overwhelming? What do you do with the anger and the bitterness?
I drink.
You drink. And is it still working to drink?
I mean, that's what I do. I don't know what else to do sometimes. It's like peace. Because I drink, and then I don't have to think about that stuff more. And the next morning I wake up and it's like a new day until something triggers me off again about it all. And
then you drink again.
Yeah, I take one day at a time. But
you know, I am looking at you, and I'm thinking that the only way I survived any of my junk, 10 years on the streets and slamming heroin and all that kind of stuff, is that I had to believe that God was better than the heroin. Because the only time I got a break is I put some drugs in the spoon, cooked it up, and slammed them. And that was my only break, the only time I didn't feel like killing myself. And I'm looking at you saying that as your friend, because I really feel like, God has allowed us to meet and start a friendship. And as your friend, I don't care what you have to do. The alcohol is lying to you. It's almost like a lover that seduces us and says, you know what, I'm right here and I'm always going to work, and it's a lie. It has never worked. It has never gotten you to a place where you could stand up in your own skin. And my prayer for you, Adam, is that you trust grace. We've been hanging out for the last couple days. You're going to be so tired of me. But what do you think of the last couple of days, what we've been talking about?
It's what you taught me, with all the talking and everything is, I mean, regardless of what we do, I mean, God loves us. Nobody's perfect. Nobody in this world's perfect. He loves us all. And if you think you can get through this world by yourself, you're crazy. You need him. And he's there, open arms, waiting for you. It's tough.
It's hard to accept.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. Because, especially for me, it should be easy. Like, I grew up being taught that on top of the don't do this and don't do that or you'll go to hell. Grace was in there somewhere. I heard it at least, but it's still, it's really tough to, I'm not drinking every day. I'm not smoking pot every day. I'm not, I don't even have the struggles that he does, but I still question myself every day.
Because you don't feel good enough.
Yeah.
You know what I want to scream to the entire world is we are not good enough. That's why Christ died. To me, I look at that, I think, where did we get that wrong? The best of us are like filthy rags. The best of us have been deceived outside of what norm is. And God said, I knew that. And Jesus said, I died knowing that. So knowing that the only way you're going to get home, the only way you're going to get back in your own skin is if I redeem you. And with you, I know that you are harder on yourself than a lot of non-Christians because you have that background. You'll call yourself, I'm not good enough, I'm doing this, I'm thinking this, I'm, whatever, I'm not good enough. And you will call yourself. Can you say even when Adam started to get a little bit of grace, what you felt like in Bible? Remember you said, I'm at a Bible study. He starts getting it a little bit, and it made me angry.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It made me angry that I'm looking at him and he's going to get it and I don't get it. Are you kidding me?
I was jealous. He gets to come into the church learning about God's love first and falling in love with Jesus and what Jesus did for us. He gets to learn that first instead of don't do this or you'll go to hell, because that's just totally the background for me.
We're going to take a break, and because we got to close. I wish that we had another hour, but we don't. So we're going to close. But I'm going to have you guys stay with me on the close, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this. If you haven't heard me say throughout this program that we are not enough, but God says my blood is enough, and I am crazy about you. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The following program discusses sensitive issues related to addictive behavior. Parents are cautioned that some material may be too candid for younger children.
Welcome back. I hope that you heard everything, that, we can get ourselves into a mess. And I want to thank you both for coming on. I want to thank you for sharing your stories so easily with us. I want to thank you for not giving up. And I want to say, whoever's watching, is that we have an enemy. And I think that sometimes we forget this, but we have an enemy. The Bible says that God himself says, I will rebuke the enemy or the devourer for you, the one that is causing plagues and addictions and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to do it for your sake. And everything that you put your hand to, trust in me, I will make sure it grows. I will make sure that you're protected and successful and all that kind of stuff. But we got to surrender it to God. Everything that you have in your pocket, everything that you have in your closet, I am done. And I'm going to accept grace, and I'm going to give you all of this junk. Until next time, always remember that God is crazy about you. Me too. Fight for yourself.